Hey everyone, my name is James Lynch, and this is the Fanatics View Hockey Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, post them in the chat. I'll get to every single one of them. All you got to do is subscribe to the channel. I'll get your questions read on air in about 10 minutes. We're going to be joined by Mike Straw. He has been on this show before. We're going to talk all things Buffalo Sabres. So we're continuing sort of our coverage of every NHL team, or as many NHL teams as we can get during this NHL offseason. There isn't a ton of news right now, so I always like to check in and see how particular teams are doing right now. Buffalo, obviously, a lot of talk with them, with Bowen Byram re-signing. What's his future going to look like there? Obviously, the big trade, trading out JJ Peterka, trading him over to the Utah Mammoth. So we'll get into all that with Mike momentarily. But if you guys have any questions in the meantime, let me know. Lots of stuff we can get into as far as projections and offseason and all that. But again, not a whole lot going on here in NHL land. And but that's fine. You know, again, this gives us an opportunity to maybe kind of pull back and look at some of the things that are going on in the NHL as far as, additions and subtractions from some of the teams. Again, we've been hearing for a while that there's going to be a lot of trades going on. That just hasn't happened right now. We are into the month of August, so maybe things will pick up a little bit. Before we get into all the news and your questions and everything else, I did want to go and have a look at some of the stuff we got up here on the channel. As more trades and signings are coming, we will have more stuff on the channel here. Like I said, we got some off-season stuff for a lot of different teams here. We got Utah, Nashville, New Jersey, Florida, San Jose. So those will continue to come through here on the channel. And then I've been doing the show every week, and you can see I've been hitting every different team that we can. We did the Oilers last week, Canucks week before, the Leafs before that, talked a little Vegas Golden Knights prior to that, Dallas Stars. I think we'll talk maybe Columbus next week with Troy Nowak. We'll get him back here on the program. But yeah, in the meantime, if you guys have any questions, would love to hear from you guys and get your thoughts on things that are coming up. Maybe what we'll do is let's have a look at some of the additions and subtractions for this upcoming season. Last week, I know we looked at sort of, the best contracts, the worst contracts, all that. So I'm going to try and find that article on the teams, the additions and subtractions from every team. Just give me a second here and we can kind of dig into that a little bit as we're kind of looking at everything here. Just give me a second here, guys. Should have had this up and ready to go. And by the way, apologies for the show being on a little bit later because it's the summer hours. I am going about 15 minutes later than usual. Usually we do this at the top of the hour. But yeah, so that's why we're going a little bit later here. Still trying to look for that. Where are we here? I should just bookmark this. It'd be much easier next time when we're coming through. So let me just find this here. Let's see. Yeah, well, this article works. I mean, it kind of covers the same thing. So this is just looking at the additions and subtractions from every single team. I am going to bookmark that going forward. Make sure we got all that on there. So yeah, you can see the San Jose Sharks. Let me just get rid of the bookmark thing here so you guys don't need to see that. So yeah, you can look at some of the additions for the Sharks. Well, actually, let's go to Buffalo because that's who we're going to start with here. And I think Buffalo's going to be at the lower end of this list because they're number 7. So Josh Doan, son of Shane Doan, obviously a big prospect they got in the Peterka trade. Michael Kesselring, Connor Timmins, I know they're excited about. Alex Leon in net. So we'll see if that pays off, formerly of the Detroit Red Wings, and losing a bunch of names as well. Sam Lafferty, Connor Clifton, Jacob Bernard Docker. But if we're looking at some of the other names that have been addition and subtraction, again, this is the Athletics article talking about the teams that have improved the most, just based off, I think it's trades and also free agent signings as well. So we talked about San Jose, I think, last week. They added a bunch of names here. John Klingberg, Jeff Skinner, Nick Leddy, Adam Gaudette. It'll be interesting to see if Gaudette can replicate his success in San Jose next year. If we go down the list, Montreal Canadiens, Zach Bolduc, Noah Dobson, Anaheim, Chris Kreider, Mikael Granlund, Peter Mrazek. So that should be interesting. How will the Ducks look without Trevor Zegras and John Gibson as they look to sort of move forward with a new era? They got the former Rangers on there, both Jacob Trouba and Chris Kreider. So we'll see how that looks. Some people feel like Anaheim's a playoff team. I'm not there yet. I think they've improved for sure, but do wonder, is it enough to get them in the playoffs? Probably not. Carolina, obviously, Ehlers and Keandre Miller. Is that going to be enough to put them over the hump? I have some doubts, as you guys know here, if you've watched the show long enough. Golden Knights adding Mitch Marner, Colton Sisson, and Jeremy Lozon. Same thing we kind of talk about every week with the Golden Knights is, that's great. They added a game changer like Mitch Marner, but their defense without Pietrangelo, how's that going to look? And the West is always competitive, as we've seen every year. Kraken, Mason Marchment, Frederick Gaudreau, Ryan Lindgren. Kind of a quiet season there from the Kraken. The Senators adding Lars Eller and Jordan Spence. I like the Spence pickup. That was a good one. As a result, they lose Gaudette, Hamonic, and Forsberg. I think Hamonic, did he retire? I would assume he did. The Red Wings, very busy as well. James Van Riemsdyk, Mason Appleton, Jacob Bernard Docker, formerly of the Sabres, John Gibson. Is that enough to push them in the playoffs? They did get a bit of a coach's bump last year with Todd McClellan. Will that be enough to get them over the hump? We'll have to see. The Lightning, a little bit quiet other than Jacob Peltier trade. Tampa's pretty much content with what they had last year. I don't know. Boston Bruins, very busy. Victor Arvidsson, Tanner Jeannot. Tanner Jeannot contract not favorably looked at by a lot of the pundits out there. Victor Arvidsson, there could be some questions too about the injuries. The Oilers didn't feel it was worth to keep him around, so he leaves and he goes there. The Rangers, their big addition, Gagrikov from the LA Kings. That was a good addition. And they get Scott Morrow from the Hurricanes as well as part of that Keandre Miller trade. Is that prospect going to pan out? We'll have to see. Blackhawks, not a whole lot there. Blackhawks, you got to be, if you're Connor Bedard, you got to be a little bit frustrated with what's going on there. They need to add some bigger pieces. And I know it's easier said than done. That's so many pundits going into this offseason thought, okay, Chicago, Utah, Anaheim, all these teams, they're going to be loading up. And it just hasn't happened. Utah has made a couple trades, but the Blackhawks are a team that has a lot of cap space and they haven't been able to use it because teams are unwilling to part with assets. A lot of teams want win now pieces and they're not getting it. How much cap space does Chicago have? Let's have a quick look here. Look at this, $18 million in cap space. They got to use that. As we're talking about this, very happy to welcome on one of my favorite people, not only when it comes to hockey, but video games. This guy does it all. Really happy to have him back on here. He was on, I remember last on our free agency show, but good time to talk about the Buffalo Sabres and welcome on my good buddy here, Mike Straw. You can follow him at Mike Straw Media. Mike, how you doing, man?
Doing good, James. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Glad to get you back on. I know, obviously, there's not a whole lot of NHL news going on these days, but one of the things we like doing here is going team by team, and nobody better to talk about the Buffalo Sabres than you. And let's start there with the Sabres. I know we talked a little bit during free agency, but was this kind of what you expected offseason-wise for the Sabres? I didn't know if there was going to be a ton of movement. There was talks about maybe trading Bowen Byram. He ends up staying. Was this sort of how things have kind of unfolded now? And yes, there could be some moves between now and the offseason. Is this kind of what you were expecting?
It's the exact opposite. That's the best way to put it. It's the exact opposite of what I expected, solely because I felt they were on the hot seat. And by them, I mean general manager Kevin Adams and Lindy Ruff. Lindy Ruff going into the final year of a 2-year deal. I figured with the way last year went, there would have been changes behind the bench, not necessarily at the head, but assistants. Nothing changed there. Thinking maybe GM change in the offseason. Nothing changed there. Okay. Roster overhaul. Something to get a certified top 6 forward scorer in here. Solidify the back end. Figure out the goaltending. They trade one of their best young players who didn't want to be there. So I get the whole, people joke, and I think it's because the Sabres have been out of the playoffs for so long. They joke about the Buffalo wants players that want to be there. Every team wants players that want to be there because they can become a distraction. Peterka didn't want to be there. But you just felt that something bigger had to happen for a front office on the hot seat. But it doesn't feel like they're even on a hot seat right now. They did bring in an advisor. They did bring in Yarmo to kind of work with Kevin Adams. And maybe that is the sign that the seat's hot of hey, this is a guy who put together the most successful run in Columbus Blue Jackets history. Keep it up or he's the next in line. It kind of feels like he's the next in line, which from my standpoint, cool. I'm fine with it because he didn't show fear in trying to do things when he put together that team that had Bobrovsky and Panarin and Duchesne in Columbus. He tried. It didn't work for a cup, but it got fans excited. It got them in the playoffs and a run. And I think that's all we want. That's all Sabres fans want.
Yeah. We've talked about this before, I think even on this show or maybe in DMs or whatever, but we have a similar feeling towards our hockey clubs because it's been a lot of mediocrity in terms of changes and things moving forward. And I feel even worse for the Sabres in the sense that you guys have tried the rebuild thing and it hasn't really, worked out. And granted, there were a lot of wrinkles in that, process as well. The Jack Eichel stuff, the trade there with Vegas. Lots of things that maybe should have worked out that didn't. Some free agent signings like Jeff Skinner. I don't think a lot of people knew. Maybe you did at the time, but I didn't think people thought that Jeff Skinner was going to fall off a cliff and that would end up not working out for them. I guess getting back to Kevin Adams though, like why do you think he is still has a job right now, considering that they have not really moved forward at all since he's been hired?
Terry Pagula has fired so many people that he's still paying.
That's right.
Murray, in Jason Bottrill, in Ralph Kruger, in Phil Housley, in Dan Bilesma, and Don Granato. Like that, he's tired of paying people that aren't there. Granted, that's a case of you're making terrible hiring decisions, right?
Yeah.
But it's also part of me. I'm like, I don't really have sympathy that a billionaire owner of a sports team who happens to own an NFL team, one of the currently most successful NFL teams minus the Super Bowls, and they're making money hand over. I don't really have sympathy, but it seemed that could be the mindset of they're tired of this. Or there's the tinfoil hat of what dirt do they have?
Yeah. No, people said the same thing in Vancouver with Jim Benning because it was way too long before he was eventually let go. Horrible trade after horrible trade. I think people in Vancouver will gladly, say this, that he was the worst GM that the Canucks have ever had. I mean, you look at some of the moves they've made, trading Gustav Forsling for a guy that they ended up flipping, like a month later, and Adam Clendenning from the Islanders that were the Chicago Blackhawks, I should say. So, I think there's definitely people can relate to that. I'm looking on Puckpedia. I guess they don't show when coaches have been paid off, but are they really still paying off some of like those names that you mentioned? Like there's no way they're still paying Dan Blasma, or you're just saying in general that's what they've done in the
general.
past?
Like they're still paying off Granato. I think they're still paying Housley, I believe, but I'm not 100%. But it's just the fact of all these failures, these turnarounds, and they're constantly letting people go, and they still got to pay them out because hockey coaching, that's guaranteed money. Like they're owed whether they're there or not. You sign me to a 2-year $10 million coaching contract, you fire me 2 days later.
Right.
Thanks. I'm still getting the money. So it's a situation where I think they're just tired of that. Right.
Yeah. Understandable.
And with Kevin Adams specifically, it's weird. I have this weird relationship with him. He made the really bad comments about taxes and palm trees last October when they were in the middle of their 13-game slide. And it just turned Buffalo into a joke. Fans were bringing palm tree blowups to games to the point where the Sabres were kicking fans out for having palm tree signs, for having palm tree blowups. People were getting custom Sabres palm tree jerseys where the sword itself were replaced with palm trees. Like this became a thing, and it still is. But with Adams, like I have this weird relationship where the moves that he makes are so questionable, but the contracts he manages to sign impress me.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll make a random move like Matt Savoy for Ryan McLeod. People, why are you giving up Matt Savoy? He got passed. Like people need to be real. He got passed on the depth chart by the depth of prospects. There's a reason Buffalo's AHL team is regularly good. Obviously, you have it with Vancouver, Abbotsford just winning the Calder.
Yeah.
But now, like Rochester there's so many that people had to go out. Ryan McLeod turned into, wow, what a deal. And then they extended him. Matt Zucker comes in on a 1-year deal, proves to be the leadership the team needs, kind of the type of player they need.
Jason Zucker.
Jason Zucker, sorry.
No,
yes.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
He comes in and he gets rewarded with a 2-year contract, cheaper than what people thought. Yeah. Devin Levi, the goalie of the future for this team. He was an RFA, and they managed to get him to a 2-year, $812,500 a year, $812,500 per year for 2 years, where he'll still be an RFA after it's all said and done. The contracts are impressive. I mean, Tage Thompson to this day still looks like a massive steal for what he is.
I was going to bring that one up. It's a great contract for what they got him on, and we'll just have the look up there. I mean, it is great. 7.1.
Yeah, and then you wonder, like, all right, like their highest paid player is arguably their best player in Rasmus Dahlin at 11, but he makes these deals where I'm impressed with the deals that are being made, but then he does something else or doesn't do something that has you questioning everything. Like, am I super happy with the Kessel ring acquisition and the Timmins acquisitions? Yes. Do I think you could have gotten more for Peterka? Yes.
Yeah.
Like Kesselring being the top guy you get. No knock on Josh Doan. I do think he's going to be a solid bottom six forward for this team, but I still feel you could have gotten more.
Yeah, I think everyone was surprised by that trade, just with what Utah gave up, and just, you know, again thinking like there could have been more, and it was kind of one of those deals too. Like, I don't know if they just wanted to get this headache out of the way, but I wonder if they would have waited a little bit longer, would the offers have been better? Because I sort of thought the same thing. Now, saying that, you're right, Josh Doan, a right shot center prospect. I mean, that's like having, you know, gold these days in the NHL when it comes to prospects. Like those are that and right shot defensemen are like two of the best assets to possibly have, which is also what you got with Kesserling as well. So yeah, I do like some of the moves, and I was going to bring up Jason Zucker actually, because, you know, there's this thought that, you know, because I hear this all the time in the NHL that like, oh, well, you know, because of the no state tax in Florida, that's why players are going there and all that. Like, basically you hear this narrative of that certain players don't want to play for certain teams, but then you see a Jason Zucker who's older and probably could have gone elsewhere, did decide to stay. So there must be something there that is keeping players interested, you know, whether it's the team or you know, just things that are going on there. Do you buy into that argument that there are players that are like, no, I don't want to go to Buffalo? Because it has a rich hockey history, you know, just if you look at the overall, you know, franchise.
1,000%. But I don't, I'll admit I've bought into at times the, you know, taxes and stuff like that. But players still go to Toronto. And we know the situation there in Ontario with taxes. I'm across the border, but I know there's a reason we haven't moved to Ontario, like my family. But we see it comes down to the success of the team. If the Sabres were successful, no one would have this conversation. It's the fact that it's been since 2011 since they've played in a playoff game. The last time they played in a playoff game, I turned 35 in a week. I wasn't legally able to drink in the States the last time they were in the playoffs. I wasn't married. I had no kid. Like, it's a generation ago. I don't see kids walking around in Sabres jerseys. Last week, I saw 2 kids walking around in Eichel Vegas jerseys.
That's how, yeah, they're actually cheering for the same player that doesn't even play for them anymore. So yeah, that's
exactly. And so I don't buy into it fully. The Zucker thing, I also think, where else was he going to get top 6 minutes?
That too, yeah, opportunities for sure.
Yeah. But he's paid off. They need more of that. They consistently are the youngest team in the league. And I do coincide being the youngest team in the league year over year with failing to make the playoffs. At some point, you have to trade your prospects for proven commodities or ready commodities to help you win now. You can't just keep stocking the barrel because it's stocked. It's been stocked for years. Hockey News and all these other outlets are saying the Sabres have one of the top prospects pools. But when they get to the NHL, they can't get to the NHL and have another 22, 23, 24-year-old trying to lead them. They need those 30-year-olds, those 35-year-olds. They need those veteran players, and they don't have it.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I think one of the things that hurt Buffalo as well was the cap rising, because you could have saw a situation where there's teams that are cash strapped that need to move cap space. There still are teams that need to move cap space. I know, just looking at the Leafs as an example the other day, I know they're needing to move some assets, but this is where having those young prospects is like having gold, because you can trade them. They're a low cap hit, and you could get someone back, and maybe that could be an impact player for the Sabres, which is what they would want to be looking for. Because like you said, it is a very young team. So I do wonder, with the cap going up, there are less teams that are worried about cap space. There are a few, like I mentioned, with Toronto, but do you think that kind of hurt Buffalo as well? And this also relates to what we've seen in the offseason, where there hasn't been a lot of movement just because teams have cap space, but they have nowhere to spend it.
Exactly. And there's teams that are in trouble. Like you brought up Toronto. Another team that has to make a move is New Jersey. Yeah. Like that. Then Buffalo's been linked to maybe trying to get a Dawson Mercer. You know, that's a $4 million contract, a couple more years. He's a RFA after the end of that. Again, though, it's another young 22, 23-year-old. Yeah. That do you need that on the roster? But at the end of the day, they have to sign Luke Hughes, still an unsigned RFA. Yeah. They only have about $6.5 million in space. Luke Hughes is not signing for $6 million. Like, let's be real. Luke Hughes is he's probably getting that $8 to $9 million, even if it's just a 2-year deal right now, because we don't know what's going on. We've talked about the Hughes brothers with Vancouver and what's going on, like with Quinn. Like, we don't know what's going on, but they have to get him under contract. So New Jersey's a team that people are linking to. Pittsburgh continues to be a team that people are linking Buffalo to with Brian Rust. He is the type of player, you get him, he stays healthy, that Buffalo needs. He's that forward. He's that veteran forward. I mean, like Zucker, he's in his early 30s. He's 33. He's under contract for a couple more years, which is fine. They could eat that $5 million, no problem, especially with the cap going up. It's just, what could you get for him? There were a lot of talks at the draft that Pittsburgh wanted one of Buffalo's Buffalo's first. They were going to move up a couple spots to 9th for Rust and maybe a pick swap. That didn't materialize. But he's still a player that by the start of the season, I think Buffalo should try and grab.
Yeah.
Will they?
Yeah, I agree.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see some of the movement that they've made, or that they can make. I do wonder as well, since you're bringing up RFAs, I think that could force some movement as well. We've got a couple notable ones. Marco Rossi still not signed with Minnesota. The last I heard from Mike Russo, who's like sort of plugged in with the Wild, is that they haven't talked since early June. I don't think that's going to end very well. Or, I mean, I know Minnesota's now said, well, we're going to try and bring him back, but I think the player has an idea of what he's worth. The team has something, different as far as that goes. Mason Marchment, or what you call it, not Mason March. Who's the guy from Anaheim that's RFA right now? Why am I drawing a blank?
McTavish?
Is it McTavish? Yeah, Mason McTavish. Sorry, I was getting my Masons mixed up. He's an RFA, 22-year-old center. Who wouldn't want someone like that? I'm not saying for the Sabres, but what I'm bringing up is that these teams need to figure out certain situations, and if they don't figure them out, this could cause some movement to go on. Like again, with Minnesota, with Anaheim, there is thoughts
Montreal
that
has to make a move. Montreal is another team that has to make a move, and on that front, the Rossi front, there was a lot of talk of Buffalo and Minnesota trying to work out a deal. Peterka Rossi.
That's right. Yeah, I saw that.
Rossi wouldn't sign an extension. They're not going to trade for a guy who doesn't want to sign an extension. Same reason why Noah Dobson went to Montreal. Buffalo was heavily in the mix. He wouldn't sign an extension. You're not going to trade a lot of assets for a guy worth it in Dobson, who's only going to be there for a year and then go elsewhere.
Unless you're Carolina and you trade Mikko Rantanen for Mikko Rantanen, right?
For a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I know. I take my jabs at Carolina because they talk about how great of a team they are with trading, and like, how do you not know the guy doesn't want to sign there? I know there's tampering issues, but like, come on. How do you not know that?
I wonder what would have happened had that Toronto deal went through. Had Marner
had Marner waived,
had he waived, and we got Rantanen in Toronto and Marner in Colorado, what would have happened? Like, that's one of those what ifs that I'll think about in like 10 years.
Yeah,
when Vegas wins another 3 cups with Marner and Eichel leading the way. And then people in Toronto are losing their mind that Marner wins a cup with Eichel and not Matthews.
He could be better. He could. I do wonder, like, without the media pressure and all that, and he doesn't have to be the guy there. You've got Eichel as well. Like, I do wonder how that looks. My only concern with Vegas is I said 2 things, and not that we're going to sidestep too far away from Buffalo here, but I do worry about the defense and I do worry about the goaltending still. I know Aiden Hill won a cup with them, but I do wonder, do you need more than that to support Aiden Hill? And you're losing Pietrangelo. That's a huge gap that you need to fill with your defense. I know they got guys stepping up, but that's hard to replace those minutes, right? So
yeah, 1,000%. But I think they're a team that can do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Marner, for as much flack as he got, man, I knew it was a pipe dream. But I would have loved everything for the opening. And you knew his eyes were set on Vegas. But had it been a traditional free agency pitch, like the Brad Richards from 2011 and those old days, Parisi and Sutter with Minnesota, those old days, I would have loved to see Pagula and Josh Allen, because Marner is a Bills fan.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Josh Allen go and pitch coming to Buffalo for Mitch Marner. Like, there's not even cup expectations in Buffalo. Marner wouldn't have it. Like, you got to win a cup. It's like, you just got to get us there, dude. Just help him get there.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. Because if it wasn't Vegas, I thought, does he just want to do that? Like, he could go get paid however much he wants, and then all he has to do is get you to the playoffs. The expectations are way lower in a different market, right? So,
yeah.
But even in Vegas, where there is expectation, it's not going to be nearly what he had to deal with in Toronto, and it's just the way the market is.
No, right? the media is not going to hound the way they do in Toronto or any Canadian market, really.
Yeah.
And now it gives Eichel a good reason to stick around after this year.
Yeah. Well, also, and here's the thing, like, and I'm sure you've been watching it. Eichel didn't have a good playoffs last year, right? Like, if you look at the overall points and everything, now, if it was a different market, that would be a much bigger story. But because it's Vegas, it's just like, they'll figure it out. They always do. They make some big move. This year, it's Marner. Years ago, it was getting Pietrangelo. It was, they're always swinging for the fences, and it's worked out a little bit. But getting back to Buffalo, I guess one of the things I was wondering too is, like, so we talked about them needing maybe some more veterans or whatever. This Bowen Byram thing I'm really interested in, because there was talks about him being traded. I can bring this up because we were just talking about Vancouver. Vancouver's been circling. I don't know. Are they thinking that Hughes is leaving, and this, not that he would be his replacement, but is that something they were looking at? So they ended up going with the 2-year deal. It'll push him to being a UFA. What did you make of that? Was that, like, I don't think many people predicted that was going to be the outcome. They thought it was probably a trade, or maybe they work things out. But what was your thoughts on the 2-year contract?
I didn't like it at first. Mm-hmm. The more I think about it, the more this is a case of, by December, if the season's gone off the rails, he's trade bait, and he's under contract for 1 more year. Team doesn't have to worry about it. They get a long-term rental rather than a short-term. And he's got no movement clause, nothing like that. And they can throw him out. It's like, hey, now you get him for a season and a half, guaranteed. So you have a year and a half to figure out. Plus, if it doesn't work out, now you have a rental player to sell. Mm-hmm. So the longer I took to think about it, the more it makes sense. And I think he did and does, obviously he signed the contract, has said he'd like to be here. He just wants more opportunity. Mm-hmm. There's a part of me that thinks he's going to get that chance. He's going to be a second pair, or he's going to be a top pair blue liner. He's going to be paired with Dahlin, because admittedly, that's the only time he's looked really good. When you're paired with an elite defenseman, they kind of can mask your issues.
Right.
So you have when it comes to defense, that is Buffalo's strength this year now, surprisingly enough. Dahlin and Byram, Power and Kesselring, Samuelson, if he figures out how to not be made of glass, and Connor Timmins. That's a good top 6.
Yeah, I agree.
Good 3 pairs. And then if Jacob Bryson can be sent to the moon, you're fine. Because you have Ryan Johnson in Rochester waiting to come up. Then you have Zach Jones, who probably wasn't signed to be an AHL guy. It's a 2-way deal, but I don't know. So the 7th defenseman is up for grabs, but that top 6 is kind of, the 3 pairings I think are kind of set. Maybe you move Samuelson and Power, and then Timmins with Kesselring. Who knows? But I don't think you trade for Kesselring to position him as a third pair blue liner either.
Do you think there's a possibility that they could just take a step next year just based off maturity? We have seen teams, like, even look at like a Columbus last year. They almost made the playoffs. They made some strides, all things considered, with what happened last offseason. But, we see players mature and get better. Do you think that could be the case here? Because you mentioned it, they're one of the youngest teams in the league. Plus, they have Josh Norris now for a full season. That'll be a bit different than what they had with Cousins. So do you think it's possible we could see them improve just based off them maturing as a team?
They are banking on Jack Quinn having found himself.
Right.
Jack Quinn pre-injury was on this nice trajectory. Everybody was happy. Got hurt, didn't look the same. Mm-hmm. Towards the end of the season, Jack Quinn started to do it again. So they gave him that contract, the 2-year bridge deal, 3.3. Show us that you figured it out. Because if he can figure it out, the loss of Peterka doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah.
Jack Quinn is a better player away from the puck than Peterka is. And that was the big thing with Peterka. He was a good goal scorer, really good goal scorer. Away from the puck, he was brutal. Yeah. Even in the offensive zone away from the puck, brutal. So if Quinn can figure it out, Thompson you don't have to worry about, and Norris stays healthy. If Norris stays healthy, that is an improvement over Cousins for what they need. He's not been able to with Ottawa, and even when he came to Buffalo last year. So the potential is there. But you do have this thing hanging over. What is going on with Alex Tuck?
Yeah, that too. Is he staying? Is he going?
I ultimately think he stays. Mm-hmm. He likes it. the benefit of being from 2.5 hours away in Syracuse and being in, like, he's talked about how happy he was to come here. I just don't know if they want to give him the 8-year deal that'll take him to 37 years old. Like, there's a part of me that thinks, like, if I'm negotiating, I'm trying to get him a 5-year, like, $8.5 million deal. He's not getting less than 8 if he hits the market. There's no way a team will give him that. If you can get him 5 years, $8.5 million, I'd be fine with it. That's kind of, but is he worth paying more than Tage Thompson?
Yeah, I don't think you can really justify it. No.
But it's also the nature of the business from when Thompson signed his deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder, like, because, Canucks faced a similar thing with Brock Besser. Everyone thought Besser was gone, including myself. I thought this is it. They kind of trashed him on the trade deadline, being like, we couldn't get any offers. They ultimately decided to keep him, and they folded to sort of the term. But I do wonder as well if, they look at a situation, like, I'm sure Buffalo wants to keep him, but I also wonder if they look at a situation like, what could be better than what we already have? Like, maybe you do find that common ground there. Like, I don't know if he'll get the 5-year deal. A lot of players do get the 8 years. Maybe you do like a Brad Marchand thing where it's a longer deal, but a lower hit maybe, or something along those lines. And then you figure it out down the line. Do you think that could be a possibility where, like, just to keep both parties happy, we'll give you the term, but we can also, trade you later if we want, and you're going to have a lower cap hit? Do you think that could happen?
Yeah, I think an 8-year deal, maybe 7.5 could work. I think
that's what he did with Besser.
Yeah, I think honestly that could work. I do ultimately think he stays. He is too important to this team from an off the ice perspective that I don't think Kevin Adams' priority, I think, is to get him extended.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's a good reason why they have the cap space they're in. It's just, it makes sense. He is a key part to this team, and replacing 30 goals is tough. And you can't afford to lose 30 goals after losing 25.
A couple other Buffalo stuff I wanted to ask you about, just from my own personal perspective. Zach Benson, I haven't really seen too much of him over the last year. I know when they drafted him, it was sort of thought as a steal because the Canucks were, a lot of people were like, why didn't you get the local guy, Zach Benson? They ended up going with Tom Vilander, who's obviously a defenseman, something more of a need, although now the Canucks have lots of defensive prospects. But I always loved the way Benson played, very, style guy. What's sort of the ceiling on him? What's sort of the thoughts on him coming into the league? Because again, I know he did start with Buffalo. What's sort of the outlook with him going forward?
They still have hope he can be a top 6. I think he's going to settle into a middle 6 role.
Okay.
He started to develop a pest kind of personality last year, which people liked. A babyface pest people seem to like. This kid who he doesn't look it, but he really gets under your skin. And he started to develop that, but there's still hope that he can be that player. Like, I know we've talked about him, and I'm not going to put, because I think Marchand ultimately is one of the best players of the modern of his generation.
Oh yeah.
Longevity, just what he's been able to do, his type of career, the type of player he is, both two-way. Like, if he can turn into something similar to a Marchand, you have that's I think what the hope is.
Yeah. And there's some offensive upside as well. Like you saw it in 100%. Junior, that that was one of the reasons why, I saw a lot of sort of draft pundits being like, why didn't other teams take him? Because there was that potential of him potentially being that, that kind of that flashy guy. But you mentioned it there too. There's some edge to him. So maybe you're getting that out of him as well, which is great. So
yeah, that'd be the hope. Like, he's shown flashes. He just hasn't put it together. But again, I don't think you can just write off. He's 20. Like, he played 71 games as an 18-year-old. I mean, like, he's 20 years old. Give him time to figure it out. Like, the Winnipeg, like his last year in Winnipeg, he was dominant. That's there. Do I see him being like a point per game player in the NHL? No. 60? Yes.
Yeah, good to know. Let's get to goaltending. I know that's been sort of a carousel for the Sabres. Just, you mentioned since 2011. I'm trying to think of all the goalies that have come and gone, but it does seem like Ukko-Pekka is sort of the guy. Obviously, they have him signed for a number of years. They got Alex Lyon from, I believe he was with Detroit last. What do you make of sort of the goaltending tandem right now? Because I know for a lot of teams, it can be a bit of a struggle.
They're going to go into camp, and I think they're going to give Devin Levi the chance to steal it.
Okay.
He had a AHL MVP-like year last year for the most part with Rochester. He looked dominant at times. The playoffs in their final series, like, they kind of but he looked dominant so many times in Rochester where you think, okay, he's figuring it out. Bringing in Alex Lyon was smart. Alex Lyon was also the goaltender that kept the Sabres out of the playoffs 2 years ago.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
When they failed. I always think about that. If they beat Florida in that one game, the Sabres make the playoffs. Florida doesn't.
Yeah. I know. It's crazy to think. Yeah.
Does the dynasty run begin or ever happen? Luukkonen is the question mark. They gave him the contract thinking he had figured it out, and last year he was abysmal. People kept pointing to the offense last year. The offense was right around, a little worse, but right around what they were the year prior. Goaltending was not. You get the goaltending of a couple years ago of Luukkonen and the offense that should have come, you have a playoff team. It's just Luukkonen is far too inconsistent, and they gave him that 5-year deal where now it feels like they could regret it. But again, at only 4.7, if you're paying that for your starting goalie, it is what it is.
No, and with the cap going up, and you look at, like, honestly, goaltending is so tough to figure out. That you remember this in the 90s, like there were goalies, and then there are some now, right? Like your Hellebucks, and well, even Hellebuck. I mean, they haven't won anything with him, sort of. If you're looking at the overall thing, but I just remember, like, goaltending was such a bigger deal, I think, in the 90s and late, in the 2000s. Like, you could, if someone had a goalie, it's like, okay, we're guaranteed to be good. But now it's kind of a crapshoot. I just mentioned Aiden Hill. Like, I don't even know if he is a top goalie, but he played well during that run. Vegas can rely on him. He does everything okay, but I don't think Aiden Hill's like the, I'm going to steal a game for you. Edmonton's dealing with goaltending issues. They tried to change they did change their goaltending coach. It looks like you're going to stick with Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard again this season. You look at so many teams that have goaltending issues. So, I mean, I honestly, looking at this, it's like, it's probably okay, but because every team to a certain degree, unless you're like New York, who's got, obviously like one of the best goalies in the league, even the Islanders with Sorokin, like there's teams that have, sort of the marquee goaltenders, but after that, it's kind of a crapshoot, don't you think? Like, especially nowadays, like we've seen goalies just come and emerge. Look at last year with Minnesota with Gustafsson, right? Like, you get guys that step up and just play well, and sometimes it's just a better fit with a different team. So
it's this weird thing with goaltending too. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, I mean, look at those 90s Sabres. They're not making the cup final without Hasek. Like, they're not doing
and Ryan Miller too. Ryan Miller was good for them as well.
Yeah, but like Hasek was the Sabres of the 90s. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was MVP 6 times, like, or 2-time MVP, 6-time Vezina. Like, but we also remember back the development of goalies. Like, I think being so in tune with prospects nowadays, the way fans are, there's this still mindset of goalies you draft a goalie at 17, 18. They need to be in the NHL by 21. Yeah. That was never the case. Mm-hmm. It used to be you wouldn't see them until 24, 25, sometimes 26 years old, but they would be dominant. They're fully developed. It seems like fans and a lot of people like want to rush the development of goalies. That's like, there's a lot of people trying to write off Levi. I'm not that. I'm willing to give Levi 3 more years to figure it out, because I just think of development of goaltending. Like Luukkonen is at the age now where this is now the time where you would expect traditionally him to get it.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get it by 27 years old, like after this season, then maybe he's not going to get it. He's not going to figure it out. But I think people are trying to push goaltending development into where forward development and defensive development is. And that's just never been the case. And it shouldn't be the case, because that's when you lead to goalies crashing out sooner than what they should. I mean, you see, this is a very off the wall example.
Let's hear it. I love off the wall examples.
Tim Thomas. He didn't become a prominent name until late in his career. So it's not really off the wall, but it's like, I think people forget. Dwayne Rollison, another longtime goaltender, journeyman, until he went to Minnesota, didn't really become a name. And then he had that run to the Cup Finals with Edmonton. Like, they take some goalies a while to figure it out, to become that star. Devin Dubnyk was a nobody. Everybody thought he was a career AHLer. Minnesota, he turned into a number 1.
Yeah.
Because he figured
Corey Schwab for the Leafs when he started for them. Remember, he was a journeyman, played well. I'll give you another name, Mike Dunham. A lot of people forget Mike Dunham was a Rangers draft pick, then went to Nashville, was their starter for years. So sometimes it just takes some time to develop.
is another kid. Like
Thomas, yes, exactly.
Not a kid.
No, I know what you mean.
But when he was a kid, he was another guy that it takes time, and goaltending development needs to slow down, at least in the eyes of the fans.
I agree.
Slow down on trying to rush when goalies should be ready. That's why, like, UPL is, again, this is the year for me with him. Levi, I'm still you got plenty of time with the Devin Levi.
Mike, this was awesome. Really good insight into the Sabres. I'll be keeping an eye out. Again, they're kind of like, I always, like I said this before, like they're like the Eastern Vancouver Canucks to me. Like I always want to see them do well. Like anytime they're, you know, the fans are on them, like it's the same thing here. People flip out. Like people were making fun of yesterday here in Canucks land about, you know, Vitaly Kravtsov re-signing because he was, you know, former first overall pick, and people were like, yes, this is the difference maker. Like just mocking it almost, because this is how fans are here. They're crazy, but in a good way. They love their team.
A Dream Cup final is Buffalo Vancouver for their first cup each.
There we go. There we go. I'd love to see it.
Stress, but dream. Like that is always, since I was a kid, was so cool when I first started getting into hockey. So the hope is, you know, maybe in 2035 it happens.
I agree. Mike Straw Media, you can check him out there. Anything you got coming up you want to let our audience know, I'll let you have the floor before we get out of here.
Stay tuned for a lot of hockey coverage. I'm a free agent trying to find an outlet, but in the meantime, I'll be doing a lot of stuff at MikeStrawMedia.com starting in September when camps get underway. So a lot of stuff coming your way there.